following week passed in a blur of sketches, fabric swatches, and endless fittings. But for Isabella, everything felt slightly different. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart lifted before she could stop it. Sometimes it was a message from Jason, a photo of a chair he'd finished, or Anna proudly holding a crooked birdhouse she'd painted pink. The texts were simple, almost ordinary, but they made her smile in a way that meetings and deadlines never could. On Friday, she found herself standing in front of Jason's workshop again. Snow drifted lazily through the air, catching in her hair as she hesitated at the door. Through the window, she saw him bent over his workbench, sleeves rolled to the elbow, the soft hum of the radio filling the air. He hadn't noticed her yet. She stood there for a moment, watching the way he moved, steady, precise, completely present in what he was doing. In her world of flashbulbs and chaos, that kind of peace felt like a forgotten luxury. When she finally knocked, he looked up, surprise flickering, then warmth. "You're early," he said, smiling. "I didn't want to miss the story time," she replied. Anna's laughter rang from the back of the shop. "Mommy Princess is here," she squealed, running forward. Isabella crouched and caught her in a hug, the nickname still making her heart skip. They spent the afternoon together, Jason finishing a table while Isabella helped Anna decorate little wooden ornaments for the town's winter fair. Each brushstroke, each shared laugh seemed to stitch the distance between their worlds a little smaller. As the light dimmed, Jason poured 2 mugs of coffee, handing her one with that quiet smile of his. "You look like you needed this," he said. "Long week," she admitted, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. "My clients think inspiration can be forced with enough caffeine." He chuckled softly. "And can it?" She smiled back. "Not the kind that matters." Silence lingered, not awkward but full. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. The fire crackled softly, and outside snow painted the world in white. Jason looked at her, his gaze steady. "You don't have to be perfect all the time, you know," he said quietly. Isabella met his eyes, startled. "What makes you think I'm trying to be?" He shrugged, setting his mug down. "Because I used to be the same, trying to hold everything together so no one sees the cracks. But sometimes, the cracks are where the light gets in." Her breath caught, not at the words, but at how gently he said them. And before she could reply, Anna ran up holding a tiny wooden heart painted gold. "It's for you," the little girl said proudly. "Daddy says gold means brave." Isabella smiled, blinking away tears she hadn't felt coming. "Then I'll keep it forever." When she left that night, Jason walked her to her car. The air was crisp, the snow soft under their boots. "Thank you," she said quietly, fingers tightening on the small heart in her pocket. "For what?" "For reminding me what real feels like." Jason hesitated, his breath misting in the cold. "You don't have to thank me for that, Isabella." His voice softened. "You just have to let yourself have it." She opened her mouth, then closed it again, too many words, none that felt right. Instead, she stepped a little closer, close enough that their shoulders brushed. The world seemed to still around them, the falling snow, the distant sound of the church bell, the faint scent of cedar and coffee. "Good night, Jason," she whispered. "Good night, sunshine," he murmured. And for the first time in years, Isabella didn't dread tomorrow. Snow was still falling when Sophie stepped out of the train station, her breath turning white in the air. The city looked like a watercolor under the streetlights, colors soft and edges blurred. She clutched the handle of her suitcase and scanned the crowd, knowing she wouldn't find the face she was hoping for. 2 years had passed since Daniel left. Time should have been enough to dull the ache, yet here she was, back in the city where it had all begun, chasing a sense of unfinished meaning. She had promised herself this trip was only for work, but she knew better. Every step she took carried the weight of old memories. She reached the apartment she had rented for the week, a small place above a flower shop. The smell of lilies drifted through the window. She set her bag down, touched the cold glass, and looked out at the narrow street where people hurried past in heavy coats. In that quiet moment, she could almost hear Daniel's laugh again, the easy, low sound that used to fill their shared mornings. The next day brought the meeting that was supposed to change her career. She walked into the architecture firm with a folder full of designs and a steady smile, but when she entered the conference room, the air shifted. Daniel was there, standing by the window, his reflection caught against the city skyline. He turned slowly, surprise flickering into something unreadable. For a long second, neither of them spoke. The people around them kept talking, unaware of the small storm that had just formed between two hearts. "Good morning," he said finally, his voice measured. Sophie nodded, forcing a calm she didn't feel. "It's been a while." "It has," he replied, then gestured toward her drawings. "I've heard you've done well." She smiled faintly. "I try." The meeting went on, filled with polite words and quiet glances. Every time Daniel spoke, Sophie felt the old pull, that mix of admiration and ache that she thought she had buried. When the meeting ended, she gathered her papers with shaking hands. He caught up to her in the hallway. "Sophie, wait!" She turned. His eyes held the same warmth she remembered, though a little wearier now. "Coffee?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then nodded. They walked to a small cafe tucked between two bookshops. The world outside was gray and cold, but inside the air was warm and smelled of cinnamon. They sat by the window in silence until Daniel finally spoke. "I wasn't expecting to see you again," he said. "Neither was I," Sophie admitted. "I thought I'd left this city for good." He looked down at his cup. "You were always better at leaving than I was." The word stung, though his tone wasn't cruel, just honest. She traced a finger along the rim of her mug. "You made it easy to go." He glanced up. "Did I?" Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat the past unfolded between them. Nights filled with plans, laughter, and the promise of forever. Then it faded, leaving only two people who once believed too much. "I used to think about what I'd say if I saw you again," she said quietly. "But now that you're here, I don't know where to start." "Start anywhere," he murmured. She took a breath. "You disappeared without a word. One day we were planning a future, and the next day you were gone." "I know," he said. "I thought I was doing the right thing." "For who?" she asked. Daniel didn't answer. Outside, snow began to fall harder, soft flakes sticking to the window. He sighed. "My father was sick. I didn't want you to give up everything to come with me. You had just been offered that job in Paris. You could have told me," she whispered. "I was afraid you'd follow me anyway." Sophie's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. "You didn't give me a choice." They sat in silence, the only sound the low hum of the heater and the murmur of strangers around them. After a long moment, Daniel spoke again. "You look different, stronger." "I had to be," she said. "You weren't there." He nodded, guilt shadowing his expression. "I wanted to come back sooner. But you didn't." "No," he admitted, voice breaking slightly. "I didn't." Sophie stood, gathering her coat. "Thank you for the coffee, Daniel." He reached out, touching her wrist gently. "Please don't go." "Not again." She froze at the sound of his voice, that same voice that had once been home. "I need time," she said finally. "Then take it," he replied softly. "Just don't disappear." She left the cafe without looking back. The street was white with snow, the kind that muffled every sound. She walked aimlessly, her thoughts a blur of anger, sorrow, and something she refused to name. That night, she opened her old sketchbook and found a drawing she had made years ago. A house by the sea, the dream home they'd once planned together. She traced the lines with her finger and whispered into the quiet, "You still live there, don't you?" Outside, the snow kept falling, covering the city in white. The winter fair was brighter than ever, strings of lights twinkling against the night sky, the smell of cocoa and roasted chestnuts filling the air. Isabella walked beside Jason and Anna, her gloved hand brushing his every few steps. Anna skipped ahead, her laughter carrying through the crowd like music. Every now and then, people waved at Jason, the town's favorite craftsman, and smiled at Isabella like she'd always belonged there. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine it, this life, this peace. A world made of sawdust and snowflakes instead of deadlines and design briefs. Jason turned to her, catching the faraway look in her eyes. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. She smiled. "That maybe fairy tales aren't made up. Maybe they just look different when you grow up." He chuckled quietly. "Maybe they do." They stopped near the frozen lake where families were skating. Anna twirled clumsily in her little boots, arms out like a ballerina. Jason bent to steady her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Isabella watched them, father and daughter framed in golden light. And something in her heart ached so beautifully, it almost hurt. Later that night, when they walked Anna to the car, she was already half asleep. Jason tucked her in, brushing a curl from her forehead. Isabella stood beside him, her breath clouding in the cold. "Jason," she began, voice trembling. "I don't know what this is yet, but I know it's real. And I don't want to lose it." He looked at her, eyes searching hers. "Then don't," he said simply. "Stay." And for a second she wanted to. Every part of her wanted to. But before she could speak, her phone buzzed. Her mother's name lit the screen. One glance at it, and the fragile spell of the night shattered. Her world, the one she'd built around rules and appearances, was calling her back. The next evening, at the Harris estate, chandeliers gleamed and violins played. Isabella stood in a gown that cost more than Jason made in a month, smiling for guests she didn't care about. But inside she was miles away, back in that workshop, in the glow of sawdust and warmth and love that didn't need to be perfect. Her mother's voice cut through her thoughts. "You look distracted, darling." Isabella turned. Margaret Harris stood tall and poised, her expression cool. "Mother," she said carefully, "do you ever wonder if we mistake perfection for happiness?" Margaret's lips tightened. "Perfection is happiness. Everything else is chaos." "Maybe chaos is where the good things live," Isabella whispered. Her mother's eyes narrowed. "You've been spending too much time with that man." Isabella met her gaze steadily. "That man is the best thing that's ever happened to me." The silence between them was sharp enough to cut glass. Margaret turned away, dismissive. "Love doesn't last, Isabella. You'll learn that someday." But Isabella already had. She'd learned that love wasn't about lasting, it was about staying. Even when it's hard. Especially then. She left the party before dessert, heels clicking down the marble steps, the cold night air biting her cheeks. Snow fell gently, the same way it had the night she met Jason. When she reached his workshop, the lights were off. She hesitated, heart pounding, before knocking. The door creaked open slowly. Jason stood there, surprise in his tired eyes. "Isabella?" "I left," she said simply. "The dress, the party, all of it. Because I realized something." He waited. "I don't need a perfect world," she said. "I just need one that feels like home. And that's here, with you and Anna." Jason didn't speak. He just stepped forward, closing the space between them. His hands found hers, rough, warm, real. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. "Because this life isn't easy. It's messy. It's loud. It's real," she interrupted, tears in her eyes. "And that's all I want." He smiled, small, unguarded, full of everything she'd been missing. Then he kissed her, slow, gentle, like a promise. Anna peeked out from behind the curtain, clutching her stuffed bunny. "Does this mean Mommy Princess is staying?" she asked sleepily. Isabella knelt and opened her arms. "If you'll have me, yes." Anna ran into her embrace, and Jason's laughter filled the room. Warm, alive, home. A year later, the little town woke to the smell of cinnamon and coffee. Jason's and Isabella's shop, the Story Nook Cafe, stood on the corner of Maple Street, its windows glowing with soft light. Inside, Jason carved toys while Isabella read fairy tales to children, Anna curled in her lap. Margaret visited often now, her laughter softer, her walls lower. Every night when the lights dimmed and the world grew quiet, Isabella would look around the small wooden home, at Jason's tools, Anna's drawings, the smell of cocoa, and whisper, "This is what I was meant to find." Jason would smile, pressing a kiss to her hair. "And you did, sunshine," he'd whisper back. "You did." The camera would pull back, past the cozy house, the shimmering lake, and the softly falling snow, until all that remained was the golden glow of a home built not from perfection, but from love. And just before the screen faded to black, Anna's voice would echo softly. "Every bedtime story needs a happy ending. But ours never ends."